The German Air Force started its large-scale attack on our closest overseas ally, on Great Britain. That was the start of the Battle of Britain. And at that point, Great Britain was the last man standing in Western Europe. The Germans had spread out into Austria and then into Czechoslovakia, and then they took Poland and Denmark and Norway and Belgium and the Netherlands and Luxembourg and France. Nazi Germany was just rolling through all of those countries. And at the end, Britain was it. Starting July 10th, 1940, the might of the German Air Force turned its sights to destroying and ultimately trying to take Britain as well, because they wanted all of it. They wanted all of Europe. And at that point, the United States had to decide what we were going to do. Here was not just our closest overseas ally, but here was the last country standing in the way of total Nazi domination of all of Europe, which is what Hitler seemed to want to use not only for its own ends, but he seemed to want to use that as the cornerstone of a global Third Reich, Nazi world domination. And here's little Great Britain standing as the last thing between them and control of that continent. So what were we going to do? What President Roosevelt wanted to do was help our ally, help Great Britain stand up to the Nazis, help them hold the line. FDR expended a huge amount of political capital to do that, and also just capital, money, to send Britain as much support as he could manage, short of us getting into the war ourselves in 1940. That's what FDR did. That is what we remember the United States doing as a country. But at the time, it definitely wasn't like a consensus decision. That is definitely what President Roosevelt wanted to do, but lots of other people in the country did not want to do that at all. Remember that date, July 10th. That's when the German Air Force started attacking the British mainland, July 10th. Exactly 1 month later, on August 10th, 1940, a sitting U.S. senator gave a national speech on the radio in which he demanded that England should say thank you to us. They should be way more grateful. They should show us some respect. Frankly, all our allies should, for all that we've done for them. And it was time, frankly, for them to start paying us back. That senator's name was Ernest Lundeen. He was a senator from Minnesota. And in Congress, he had formed something called the Make Europe Pay War Debts Committee, which said that we shouldn't be helping our so-called allies in Europe at all, because frankly, those allies, especially England, they owed us. They owed us money from the First World War, money they hadn't been able to pay back yet. We should focus now on making them pay us back rather than us giving them any more help. I mean, who cares that they're being invaded and attacked by the huge Nazi war machine, which has already invaded and taken over the whole rest of Western Europe? Not our problem. We should be collecting right now on what they owe us for helping them already the first time around. In no way should we be giving them any more help. Ernest Lundeen was actually so into the idea of the Make Europe Pay War Debts Committee that he formed a second committee with a similar name that focused specifically on how they should pay their debts to us. His other committee said that they should pay their war debts to us by giving us their islands. Islands for War Debts Committee. That was his idea. Our allies are in the middle of being invaded and bombed and occupied by the Nazis, but this seems like a good moment to see if we can get some stuff off of them.
Seizure of the islands may be necessary, as was once advocated by Andrew Jackson, our great American president. Danish and Dutch, British and French island possessions in America, all must become American. In the meantime, our debts are piling sky high, approaching 50 billions, with a $6 billion deficit this year.
Yeah, see, we've got these debts. They owe us. Let's seize their islands to cover some of their debt to us. Let them fight off the Nazis themselves. They owe us. We shouldn't be helping them anymore. Less than 2 weeks after giving that speech on the radio, Senator Ernest Lundeen was dead in a mysterious plane crash. When they pulled his body out of the wreckage, they found in the pocket of his jacket a draft speech that he had been planning on giving in the United States Senate that was kind of along the same lines as that radio address. Definitely don't support our supposed allies as they are fighting Hitler. Who cares about whether or not they can fight Hitler off or not? What's so bad about Germany anyway? That was the draft of the speech in his pocket. He never got a chance to deliver that speech because he died in that plane crash. But that speech that he had on him, that he had in his pocket when he died, turns out that speech was written for him by the Nazi government, by a Nazi agent, by the Hitler government's top paid propaganda agent in the United States. Turns out that Senator Ernest Lundin was being paid by the Nazis. He had been on Hitler's payroll the whole time. Hitler's government was paying him to argue in Washington, to use his position as a U.S. senator, to make this case to the American people that we shouldn't be helping our allies fight back against the Nazis in Europe. We should instead focus on getting them to apologize to us for not being able to pay back everything we did for them in the First World War. We should be getting them to show their gratitude to us now by figuring out what they can do, what they can give up of their own resources to prioritize paying us while they're fighting off the Nazis or whatever. That happened in August 1940. How was your day today?
I have been told by a senior official here that nothing's going to happen with this minerals deal until Zelensky goes in front of cameras and makes an explicit public apology.
85 years ago, in 1940, Ernest Lundin was just a senator. He wasn't the president or the vice president. And ultimately, we did not adopt as a country this proposal that Hitler had stuffed into his mouth with a wad of cash, this proposal from him that we should refuse to even dig a grave for our allies, that we should not only refuse to help them, we should pile on them, make things even harder for them than they already were. We did not go along with that. Ernest Lundin died in that plane crash. Not long thereafter, he was exposed as a paid Nazi agent. And then he quickly was forgotten. We didn't choose his course 85 years ago. We chose to go with what President Roosevelt wanted to do. We chose a very different course. And in so doing, the United States not only stood up for our allies and stood against the Nazis, the United States became the leader of the free world. And now it is 85 years later. It's 2025. We're 6 weeks into Donald Trump's second term as president. And our ally, Ukraine, doesn't have any islands to give up to us. But they do have minerals, I guess, that we could take off them, that we could mine. And so under Donald Trump, our offer to our ally, Ukraine, as they try to fight off an invasion from Russia, our offer to them is that they should be so lucky that we would deign to take all of their minerals. They'd be lucky to get such a deal with us. In fact, they'll only even get that deal. They'll only get the privilege of us taking their resources off of them if they grovel for it.